suppose what happens with social media is that your personality becomes part of it, and that is something that you have to bear in mind, both for good and for bad. You have to control any narcissistic or tendencies of arrogance or any tendencies you have to have a really bad temper, which is sometimes very difficult. If you've got a lot of followers, you find yourself being abused a lot, and it's really tempting to shout back at people.
So
all of those kinds of things.
How much do you censor yourself on Twitter?
Oh, I wouldn't say I censored myself. I stopped myself late at night telling people to fuck off.
That's a good policy.
This is going out on an internal network. I hope nobody's going to put that clip on Twitter, but there you go. If they do, they do. So okay, that's censorship. But I think what you try to do. I mean, I think one of the things that's about Twitter is that people would never have known about me before, reading very straight introductions into stories or whatever, is that I've got a sense of humour. You know, I'm not saying I'm a particularly funny guy, but I've got an average sense of humour, and I like to laugh, and I like, I like to intersperse my Twitter feed with some funny stuff, and I like to put stuff that's completely out of the the usual run of current affairs on it. Interesting photographs. I just now tweeted a photograph of the Ukrainian Parliament, but it was not a political story at all. Somebody had just analysed the composition of this photograph, and then they put it in a gold frame. They analysed it in terms of the Fibonacci spiral, which was the dominant force of Renaissance painting, and you could see this photograph as a composition looked exactly like a Renaissance painting, a Caravaggio, in fact. And so stuff like that. It's an outlet to be as broad as you want. But then again, if you're, as I say, if you're a medical reporter or a science reporter or whatever, then you can develop your Twitter feed in a much narrower way if you want to, so that you become the go-to person. You become the person who people follow if they want to know about physics or medicine or whatever. So there are lots of different ways to do it, and that's one of the big things about Twitter, is that it's almost infinitely variable. Although it's this mass medium, it's extremely individual. You tailor your Twitter feed according to who you follow. So I follow about 2,000 people, and my Twitter feed is really, really interesting. It's huge, and I don't read everything. I dip into it like you dip a cup into a river. But I always come out with something interesting, because I don't follow people who talk rubbish about Justin Bieber or what they had for breakfast or whatever.
Do you spend a lot of time tweeting and thinking about what you're going to tweet? Does it take up a lot of energy?
No, not really. I have had quite a lot of health problems, so I'm a lot more sedentary than most people. So I have more time to do it. I do. There's something that I really do put some effort into, but it's more for kind of my own pleasure than anything else, and that is just writing a sentence that really reads well inside 140 characters. It's almost like writing a little tiny bit of poetry or a haiku or something like that. If you get the sentence really well balanced. And I like using unusual vocabulary, or one way or another. And also, I think what's quite fun is I've never been a headline sub, but I love great headlines. And one of the things that you do on Twitter is just sometimes you get a great idea for a headline, and you just whack it on a story that you're tweeting. That's fun, but it takes a little effort, but I wouldn't say it's work.
Do you try to break news on Twitter?
Sometimes, yeah. I mean, I think there is a lot of what I do is act as a conduit, and so what I try to do is, if there's, I remember when the Japanese tsunami hit, because quite a lot of people trust me. So what I was doing was looking for reliable sources, and and Twitter was way ahead of everybody else. And then what I try to do when there is breaking news is try and find 3 or 4 sources, all saying roughly the same thing, confirming each other. What I said to you earlier about the old journalistic rules: you need 2 or 3 sources, you need to get stuff
and so you'd retweet all those
so
sources.
I'll go bang, 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 3 or 4 in a row, and then people get the impression that this is a big breaking story. If we break a story, if we've got something coming up, you make a judgment about that. Sometimes you don't want it, you're worried that there'll be an injunction, so you keep it under your hat until you go to air at 5 o'clock. That's fairly rare. But a lot of the time you say, we've got this fantastic interview or this fantastic story, Mike Willis, he's got an exclusive or something like that coming up on Listen to PM at 5 o'clock, that sort of thing.